Here is Jim Telemonte.
Southbound 53, traffic is jammed right now from Higgins to Devon. There's a crash blocking two right lanes. Southbound I-55 is heavy from Will to Grundy County. There's a closure of southbound I-55 at Gardner Road. All traffic's forced off due to a rollover crash. On the Kennedy Expressway, earlier delays have dissipated. It's just a little congested inbound approaching the Burns Circle. The Eisenhower, 28 minutes either way between 390 and downtown. Stevenson, 30 minutes, 355 to the drive. Ryan, 15 minutes from 95th to downtown. There is a closure in River north of Huron with LaSalle and Wells after an overnight crash and shooting. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. In our AM 560 Weather Center, morning rain and thunderstorms, otherwise breezy, not as hot, clouds and sun, high 84. Currently 71 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
So on its final day in session, the Supreme Court issued a long-awaited ruling on President Trump's tax records. The court determined that the president is not immune to subpoenas from the New York prosecutors for investigating alleged hush money, payments made to women who claim to have had affairs with Trump. But the court punted on whether those financial records must be handed over to Congress, leading that for a lower court to decide. And President Trump was on with Sean Hannity last night, lashing out at the Supreme Court ruling on his tax returns, but also he took aim at the IRS.
I'm under tax audit. I have been for a long period of time. We made a deal a long time ago, and once I ran for politics, that deal was like we didn't make it. So I'm under a continuing audit, and anybody that did that or showed that before you have it finalized, but they treat me horribly. The IRS, horribly. It's a disgrace what's happened. We had a deal done. In fact, I guess it was signed even. And once I ran or once I won or somewhere back a long time ago, everything was like, well, let's start all over again.
With more on this, let's welcome back to the program Ed Morrissey. He's our good friend. I was recently on his podcast, by the way, Paul. I don't know if you've heard. He's senior editor for hotair.com. Good morning, Ed. How are you?
Good morning, Amy and Paul.
Good. So what does this all mean with this ruling yesterday? Because, I've been hearing, too, that even if his tax returns are released, it's not going to be until after the 2020 election.
Right. I mean, what the Supreme Court did here was basically it just remanded both cases, the House subpoenas case for Trump's financial records as well as Cyrus Vance's subpoena, back to lower courts with more instructions on what to consider in the cases going forward. And that means that the whole appeals process is opened back up again when the courts eventually rule again. This is going to take months, if not a couple of years. And so even though Donald Trump was unhappy that the court didn't find absolute immunity while he's in office, which is something that I don't think anybody thought the court was going to find, he should be happy with the outcome of this, which means that it's basically punted until well after the election. And I suspect that since these won't be coming up in the election, the motivation to get to these records might drop off considerably.
Well, why won't he release his tax returns? I mean, do you think he's hiding something? I mean, Biden came out, he's released his 2016 to 2018 taxes. And, I think we need to see his taxes to see where he's making donations to. Do you think he's hiding anything?
Well, I mean, certainly he wants to keep it private, and he probably has lots of different reasons to keep it private. What I would say is this: is that I think that that's a personal choice and it's a political choice, and that means that it's something that voters certainly should consider when they're deciding who to vote for. But I don't know that this is a legal requirement. There is no requirement to disclose these things. It's a common practice among presidential candidates, but it's not even really a common practice among other federal candidates. Nancy Pelosi has never released her tax records, for instance, and she's the Speaker of the House. And she was asked about this yesterday, and she says, well, when I run for president, I'll release my tax records. So,
How convenient.
It's a practice, but it's not a requirement. And when they do get released, basically you get information that's picked over, pulled out of context. When you have somebody who's running a complicated business like Donald Trump certainly is, there's going to be a whole lot of those things that you can pull out of context without understanding the basis for some of the numbers and where the income is coming from. And frankly, it doesn't really tell you too much. I think that the disclosure forms, which are required about your assets, are much more meaningful, I guess you can say, in terms of what might be a conflict of interest for somebody who's in office.
Look, you're going to run for public office. You need to release all of your financials. And this excuse that I've been under audit forever.
The IRS said that he's not under audit.
Yeah, right. Come on. I mean, the bottom line is he doesn't want to release his tax returns because he probably has a few things to hide. I mean, the fact that they've been so aggressive about trying to block Deutsche Bank from releasing their records, if you remember. And didn't Deutsche Bank just get fined internationally for, and everybody knows that that's a money laundering bank for the Russians. And look, I'm not subscribing to the Russian conspiracy theories or anything like that. But the bottom line, Deutsche Bank, he has not only been a beneficiary of the Deutsche Bank loans, but so has his son-in-law, Kirchner, has been a big beneficiary. So clearly, if you don't have anything to hide, he clearly hasn't been under audit all this time. There's no excuse for, I don't think he's being treated with a double standard. I think Pelosi saying that when she runs for president, she's going to release her tax returns. I think that's equally a cop-out. But at the end of the day, they are trying to hide something, and so
Well, the bottom line is this going to impact this decision? Is it going to is it going to move the needle in either way in the 2020 election, or people's eyes glaze over when they hear about this?
Apparently not. Let me ask you a question, though. I thought with regards to the Supreme Court decision governing what Vance can get in terms of his financials. I know they punted that back to the lower court, but didn't they basically say, yes, you can have access to that financials, go back to the lower court to get it? If the lower court gave them the green light, would it then be litigated back up to the Supreme Court again? I understand that they clearly kind of punted because they basically told Congress that they're going to need to kind of redefine what they're asking for. They clearly dealt with the congressional the issue of Congress accessing the data differently. But I thought they pretty much left it up to the lower court to just make a final decision on whether or not to agree with the information request that Vance, the disclosures that Vance was demanding.
No, two things about this. One is that the Supreme Court decision on Trump v. Vance was very specific. All they ruled about was absolute immunity and heightened need. Those were the two claims that Trump was making in order to block that. What they also said in that decision was that there were still, even without absolute immunity, which just simply doesn't exist, and heightened need, which doesn't apply in this case, that Trump still had all of the different objections to subpoenas that normal citizens would have, and that it needs to go back to the lower court so that in case Trump wants to raise any of those, he can raise those. But all that Trump v. Vance said is that there's no such thing as absolute immunity for presidents while they're in office, and heightened need doesn't apply here, so they're going to have to go back and relitigate. Now, if they go back to the lower court and Trump drops his objection, then, of course, the lower court will just approve it. But I don't think Trump's going to drop those objections. I think they're going to fight it on other grounds, in which case it means that when the court rules on those other grounds, then you can still appeal those decisions. That's what happens when you remand back to lower court. If the Supreme Court just wanted to release those records, they could have just ordered them released and not sent it back to the lower court. That's not what they did, and they didn't rule on any of the other merits of the case, which is the reason why they did the remand.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to, pop culture, because I saw one of your tweets about Lady Antebellum. They dropped Antebellum because of the words ties to slavery. And they've filed a lawsuit against a African-American singer who has performed under Lady A for years. Doesn't this defeat the purpose here?
Yes, this is absolutely insane, right? This is what happens when this is the reason why artists are certainly talented, but not necessarily bright. And this is this is just a great example of this. This was Lady Antebellum. I mean, this is a Nashville-based recording group, and once all this came out, they've been recording for quite a few years. I think it's like 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And under that name, and they claim that they just noticed the fact that antebellum has slavery implications.
Just like Dixie Chicks. Now they're just the Chicks.
They're just the Chicks.
Now they're just the Chicks, yeah, because apparently they just realized that Dixie has some sort of connotation to the Confederacy. I mean, it's this absurd claim. So they said, well, we're going to change our name. We're going to call ourselves Lady A from now on, because apparently that's what some of their fans used to call them. And they trademarked that name in 2010. Now, when they did that, they didn't realize that there was a singer who had been, before that, singing under the name Lady A. Her name's Anita White, hence Lady A.
Okay.
And so now they wanted to negotiate with her to use the name, but she was furious when they announced this because they didn't even bother to check if anybody else was using the name.
That name was taken, right.
Right. And so they wanted to negotiate, and apparently Anita White wanted something on the order of $10 million to give it up, which I think was more or less punitive because she was extremely angry about what the band had done. And so now they're
$1
suing
million?
her. Yeah, I'd take $1 million.
I'd take $1 million too. You can have my name here. You take it.
And Lady A would work for you, Amy, right? I mean, that would work for you.
Oh, that's right. I'm gonna sue too. I want Lady A.
You know what?
Right.
You know what? For $500,000, I'll agree not to call myself Lady A too. So, but so I'm cheap. You know what I gotta say? But the absurdity of this is that they're claiming that they're going to have to claim that she's infringing on a trademark that they never defended. They never even realized that somebody was performing under that name for 10 years. And the way trademark law works, it's not like a patent. The way trademark law works is you have to continually defend the trademark. If anybody's infringing on it, you have to send them, the cease and desist notice. Coca-Cola used to do this. Xerox used to do this. They were aggressively defending their trademarks because people would say Coke when they meant any number of soft drinks in like restaurants and bars and stuff like that. And they would send people out to find where that was happening and send them cease and desist letters so they could show that they were defending the trademark. So hauling poor Anita White into court and suing her over a trademark that they haven't been defending in 10 years is not going to
Well, they're going to lose, don't you think?
They're going to lose. They're going to lose big. In the meantime, the whole point of this was to show that they were down with the struggle.
Exactly. And now they're hurting the struggle.
Right.
Right. They're suing an African American woman to show just how down with the struggle they are. They really need to come up with a different name.
Yes.
That's really
All
the
right.
bottom line.
Thanks so much, Ed Morrissey. Always a pleasure. Senior editor for HotAir.com. And where can we listen to your radio podcasts?
At hotair.com and also on our Hot Air's Facebook page, which is where they're located. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Ed Morrissey. We'll have you back soon. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Attention maintenance coordinators and chief engineers. Welding is a craft requiring highly skilled personnel and specialized equipment. So who do you call when you need welding? Vans Industrial can perform all types of welding at your site or in their shop.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. As a metal fabricator and installer, welding is a huge part of our business. At Vans, we have trained AWS certified welders, skilled in welding all types of alloys. We can weld carbon steel, stainless steel, brass, and aluminum with a variety of techniques, including MIG, TIG, and stick. And we have equipment to reach the farthest parts or the tightest areas of your facility.
Vans uses only the best and safest union-trained mechanics, insured at the highest level, to perform the job right. Call 833-VANS-IND to schedule your welding project today. That's 833-VANS-IND. Or visit vansindustrial.com. VANSindustrial.com. Vans Industrial, working safe since 1964.
Remember, oftentimes the best defense our body has against getting sick is having a strong, healthy immune system, and that's why I take Balance of Nature to keep my immune system strong. We've had doctors on this program who say, you want a strong immune system? Get enough sleep, exercise, and eat a well-balanced diet. And how many of us can say that we're doing that on a daily basis? I'm not, and that's why I'm taking Balance of Nature, so are my boys. 6 capsules, you're getting 10 servings of 31 different fruits and veggies. Paul, this is a true story. One of my dear friends, she had to put off her hip surgery because of COVID-19. I turned her on to Balance of Nature. 2 weeks into it, she called me up and she said, "Are you kidding me? What is this stuff?" And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I was able to run 4 to 5